Welcome to the release highlights for SAP Business One 9.2. With SAP Business One 9.2, you can run your business simply, anytime, anywhere. Introducing SAP Business One Browser Access, simple remote access for on-premise customers, ultimately lowering the overall total cost of ownership. By accelerating transition to the cloud, we have opened up to new market segments. Differentiate your business with SAP Business One 9.2, version for SAP Hana, and leverage our SAP Hana-based innovations. We have extended SAP Business One with new business processes, such as project management, and continue to round out existing processes and evolve to meet ongoing legal requirements. We've kept SAP Business One simple, from simple remote access, simple lifecycle management, and a simplified infrastructure and landscape environment, making SAP Business One 9.2 easier and more cost-effective to use than ever before. So what's on the agenda? We have a number of key highlights which will be covered in more detail in the coming slides. From enhanced administration topics, financial management, and introducing our new project management module, and updates to sales, purchasing and service. SAP Business One 9.2 version for SAP HANA include powerful business intelligence tools we will also share with you. We have also rounded out a number of business processes under inventory and distribution, MRP and production, and simplified and optimized the lifecycle management of SAP Business One. Last but certainly not least, we will introduce browser access and key extensibility enhancements. So let's look at these topics in more detail, starting with administration. We have extended a number of field lengths to 50 characters, including item number, business partner catalogue number, resource number, manufacturing catalogue number, and the user code. And whilst this may seem like a simple update, it provides greater flexibility to define various items of the same product distinguished by different attributes, such as size, colour, height or width. It supports a greater range of naming conventions to meet different business or industry needs. The Electronic Document Framework. With the Electronic Document Framework, you can now generate XML files for your transactions for integration purposes. It supports all accounts receivable transactions on the customer side, like quotations, sales orders, deliveries or invoices. The Electronic Document Framework can easily be set up, and in combination with an integration solution, such as the integration framework of SAP Business One, you can implement an electronic data exchange scenario. This now provides a simple approach to generate an XML output for your business and an easy way to set up an electronic data exchange and integration with your customers. Quick Copy. This simple but effective tool for copying data between data sources supports a number of new data categories, from user group authorizations through to non-Fiori style cockpit and dashboards, making it more powerful and flexible to use. Data ownership functionality in previous releases only supported marketing documents. We have extended data ownership management to include business partner master data, allowing the ability to restrict access to business partner master data and the creation of documents relating to corresponding business partners. You can now restrict access and visibility of specific business partner master data for specific users. Data ownership can also be bypassed by granting access as owner to the entire company. In addition, explicit restrictions can be made or excluded for system reports and many other SAP Business One windows, including marketing documents. So this feature delivers an additional layer of authorization and security and enhances usability, as only relevant data is considered and safeguards company information against data theft. Currently, in SAP Business One, if you want to send an email which is triggered by an alert, the SAP Business One client needs to be running, or no alert is triggered. With Release 9.2, A new service layer has been implemented on the server side with a new job service, which will now allow alerts to trigger emails independent of the Business One client at any time. A predefined SAP Business One user called Alert Service will be used by default to send internal messages or trigger the SAP Business One mailer to send email. So now you have the ability to receive alerts anytime, whenever they occur to meet your business demands. The Relationship Map feature is now available for the Human Resources module, representing employee master data. You can now view your employees in a hierarchy structure, as an organizational chart, or broken down into teams and roles. So now you can more easily visualize human resources related data, and it provides a visual overview of employees, teams, their positions, and your company organization. A number of other topics under administration include, for example, the update to the approval procedure process. Sometimes a document that has already been approved needs to be updated. If the user requires approval to update the document, the approval process will now be initiated again to approve any changes made prior to adding the document to the system. Import from Excel now supports the following data types from Microsoft Excel into SAP Business One. It supports price lists and business partner catalog numbers. You can now use the Enter key on the numeric keypad as the Tab key to move between fields in Business One for faster data entry. The license mechanism has also been updated. It now prevents users from logging into the same company with the same user code, which is already logged in for indirect users and browser access. You can either cancel your logon or confirm your logon, which will lock out the other user using the same user account. The license server, based on HTTPS, is now fully integrated into the System Landscape directory. And what this means is there's no additional license file required on further servers, which will now support a high availability landscape environment. We have a number of key topics to highlight under Financial Management. We have now aligned postings of journal entries with marketing documents. So rows with the same journal ledger accounts are not grouped in a journal entry. One row in a journal entry is now linked to one row in a marketing document, adding a visible reference for users. This provides an unambiguous reference to document rows from journal entry rows. It also provides the basis for more detailed reporting. There are also a number of IFRS enhancements that are implemented to support revenue recognition at point of sale when the buyer takes over the ownership of goods. Revenue can be recognised if it is relatively certain that a company will receive payment for the goods sold. We've now activated matching principal standards for correct revenue recognition. We've also maximised the number of chart of account levels up to 10 levels, and all of these levels can be used for posting. You also have the ability to rename your chart of account drawers, and these will be reflected across the system and all your reports. Enabling matching principles allows correct revenue recognition in order to comply with standard accounting principles. For example, it supports a business case if sold goods are delivered at the end of a period and invoiced at the beginning of the next period. And enhancements to the chart of accounts provides greater flexibility to create chart of accounts according to relevant business needs. Fixed assets in version 9.2 introduces the virtual fixed asset concept. When a company purchases identical assets in large quantities, this functionality can be used to automatically create fixed asset master data records for each of the asset. Serial number enforcement has also been enabled to save time and effort. This will promote fast processing of large quantities of fixed assets that share the same properties. A new authorization has been added for better control over checks for payment. When creating checks for payment manually, the Create Journal Entry field is checked automatically, and only authorized users can uncheck this. This will avoid any fraud in relation to misusing outgoing checks and provide greater control over user authorizations to create, print, update, and also design check layouts. Several other topics under Financial Management include third-party checks. You can now select an endorsable third-party check as an outgoing payment, as a payment means instead of endorsing the check by creating a manual journal entry. There have been a number of updates to posting schemas for manufacturing. You can now choose between two posting schemas for manufacturing: accounting with balance sheet accounts only, or accounting with balance sheet accounts and profit and loss accounts. With business partner opening balances, you can now define the control account used for posting opening balance transactions for each business partner. And lastly, SAP Business One 9.2 version for SAP Hana has enhanced its external reconciliation feature for optimized performance. Let me now introduce you to the new project management capabilities in SAP Business One Release 9.2. Project information in SAP Business One was limited to financial data. To complement SAP Business One's existing project-based features, we have rolled out additional project management functionality, now combined into one solution. We have centralized all project-related transactions, documents, resources and activities, making it much easier to track and manage the different tasks, stages or phases of a project from start to finish. Centralization of project data allows you to more easily analyze budgets and costs and generate reports relating to all aspects of your projects, providing greater transparency and thus making better informed decisions. Let's now move on to sales, purchasing and service updates. In previous releases, users could decide whether to reopen an item quantity in the original document or not when creating a return, a goods return, or a credit memo. This behavior has simply been extended to support scenarios where a user copies an order to a reserve invoice and then credits it. Users can now decide whether to reopen the item quantity in the original document, and it supports real business scenarios. Campaign management. You can now create and manage campaigns for vendors under campaign management. This provides another channel of communication with your vendors for any newsletter or email type campaigns. It can also be used to tender purchase quotations to multiple vendors for specific products, for example. You can also run saved or existing campaigns repeatedly without having to create a new campaign, which should save time and effort for campaigns that are run on a regular basis. The service module has been extended in Release 9.2 to support vendors. So now you can leverage the service module for vendor-related service requirements. Also, the business partner details are now visible from the service call window, capturing relevant business partner information, enabling better efficiency and service call planning. And finally, SAP Business One 9.2 now provides you with the option to define a freight amount that includes tax according to your business requirements. I would now like to share with you a number of key tools for effective business intelligence in SAP Business One 9.2 version for SAP Hana. Hana model content has been enhanced, including new semantic layers. New Hana views for opportunities, sales quotations, sales analysis, purchase analysis, and inventory have been introduced. These views can now be used to analyze your business and create additional dashboards and KPIs. In addition, 6 new predefined KPIs have been delivered and can be used out of the box. The pervasive dashboard has also been enhanced. Using the Pervasive Analytics Designer, you can now slice corresponding measure values from one axis in comparison to the existing dimension that slices corresponding measure values from the other axis. Also, in dashboards with one date type dimension, you can now use the new function of a time slider for a clearer view of trends. The pervasive dashboard now supports more calculation types, such as cumulative sum, minimum, maximum, and count. And these new options will allow you to build more powerful dashboards to better analyze your data. The Interactive Analysis Report Designer is a Microsoft Excel-based analytics and reporting tool based on a Microsoft Excel plugin and utilizes SAP Business One HANA views as data sources. It gives users more flexibility to manipulate reports in Excel, providing a view for better decision-making outcomes. Intelligent Forecast is a new tool which utilises the power of SAP Hana to calculate future demand. It uses algorithms of the SAP Hana Predictive Analysis Library to forecast demands incorporating trends and seasonal factors. So now you can manually adjust outliers and use hindcast to find the best forecast. The forecast result can then be used later to optimise an MRP run. Intelligent Forecast ultimately allows you to make better decisions as a result of flexible forecasting and do what-if type analysis. Highlights under Inventory and Distribution include the following. A Prices Update Wizard. Maintaining price updates has become much simpler and easier using the new Prices Update Wizard. It allows you to update item prices and price lists efficiently and in bulk. You can even convert prices into other currencies. A new simulation mode shows you all of the suggested changes before you decide to commit and execute the update. This price list update wizard can save a lot of time if your company needs frequent pricing updates across a large number of items and price lists. Bin locations can now be restricted to contain certain units of measure only. So for each bin location, you can now define whether to allow only a specific unit of measure, a specific unit of measure group, or a single unit of measure, or a single unit of measure group. And once a restriction has been defined, the transaction to post goods will offer only allowed bin locations to the user to choose from. Unit of measure restriction and bin locations help companies to utilize their storage more efficiently. The enhanced Pick and Pack Manager in version 9.2 is a one-stop shop for handling production orders in a basic production environment. The new selection criteria allows you to select only items or only resources or both in one transaction. In the Pick and Pack Manager itself, we can now issue individual rows for production. This adds more flexibility in handling production requirements. Release 9.2 will no longer allow updates to prices for standard value items in the item master data. The only option to update an item cost is to use inventory revaluation. The reason behind this is to ensure an impeccable audit trail when it comes to revaluing standard items. It also promotes greater control and visibility when tracking inventory costs. Last but not least, inventory counting documents can now be previewed or printed before adding these documents to the system. And we've also made updates to inventory posting and inventory opening balances. For items managed by serial or batch valuation method, variances are now valued on a serial or batch level as opposed to bin or warehouse level. Let's now move on to our updates to the MRP and production modules. The Material Resource Planning module has been enhanced with a number of updates to the MRP wizard. Under the Items List Selection Criteria window, there is a new expanded selection criteria, enabling you to choose a preferred vendor and user-defined fields for items. You can also view more item details such as item master data variables that may impact the MRP run. This provides greater flexibility to be more specific with your item selection and easily manipulate master data variables to support your MRP scenario. You can then later easily revert back to the default variables at a later stage when rerunning a saved scenario. Forecasting in Release 9.2 allows you to create and maintain forecasts for items per warehouse. Forecasting items on a warehouse level enables you to select sales orders according to relevant warehouses, allowing greater control over your forecast demand. You also now have the ability to select multiple rows, which now makes it easy to delete row items or manage the increase or decrease of your forecast percentage across multiple item rows as well. Production standard cost. Key components of this enhancement include the introduction of resource functionality, enabling basic production capacity management, monitoring complete standard production costing, and analysis of real production variances, and simplification of bill of material management, providing greater flexibility with the use of production orders. We can now define a production standard cost in item master data. This can be used as budgeted cost, enabling cost comparisons between standard and actual costings, or for production variance analysis. The Bill of Materials window has two new columns where standard production cost and the total cost can be displayed. The second update to the production module in version 9.2 is the introduction of row-level dates. We can now define start and end dates for all components and resources in a production order. In earlier versions, it was only possible to define dates on the document header level, which meant that there was no option to earmark components and resources exactly on the date required. So all row-level dates have to be within the header-level dates. When changing the header-level start and end dates, there is an option to update all row-level dates according to this. And all dates are defined on the production order itself. There's no separate table. The resource capacity window can also be used to monitor resource and component consumption and availability. There are 4 different allocation methods: on start date, on end date, start date forwards, and end date backwards. And this will enable you to more easily plan allocation of item and/or resources for all your production requirements. Let's now highlight several lifecycle management and support features for SAP Business One 9.2. Simplification of the installation and upgrade process focused on the installation wizard and the upgrade wizard, which are now merged into one setup wizard. You can now easily use the setup wizard to perform both an installation and an upgrade easily. The structure of the SAP Business One product package has also been simplified. But please note that the demo databases that are available are only available in the installation package itself. The logging and tracing mechanism has also been changed to include a storage centralization and other unifications, in addition to new logging and tracing objects. Additional information is added to the Microsoft SQL Server trace to help identify SAP Business One operations that trigger respective transact SQL statements. Also, with logger settings, you can now enable full logging to record logged messages of all severities for the SAP Business One client. One single click is required to enable or disable full logging. You no longer need to restart the SAP Business One client after changing the logger settings. There have been a number of changes to HANA server components and the setup wizard, which include file naming changes. You also have free selection of local addresses. So if you install SAP Business One server components on a Linux server with more than one network interface, you can decide which IP address to use. You can also use the hostname to register the components. In reconfiguration mode, you can use the setup script to configure an existing installation. Configurable settings include the database address, the database user, service port, and so on. In validation mode, a validation is performed upon the finish of an installation, upgrade, or reconfiguration, and you can also use the setup script to manually perform a validation and check if the SAP Business One components are working accordingly. The remote support platform protects your SAP Business One installation by monitoring customers' environments and providing automated and remote support. With the Remote Support Platform 3.2, we have delivered a new technical user to connect with the new SAP backend system. In order to communicate with SAP's new backend, a technical user with technical data transfer authorization must be configured in the Remote Support Platform. This new technical user enhances security as it is designed for data transfer only. It also minimizes maintenance effort as its password doesn't need to be changed as often, and it is also currently free of charge. Partners can now use the Remote Support Platform Studio to develop support tasks, deliver tasks to customers, and manage tasks for different customer installations. In the Remote Support Platform Studio 3.2, partners are now able to manage customer landscapes remotely, including distribution of tasks, and adjust the schedule of SAP tasks based on their customers' needs. These features were formerly available through the Remote Support Platform Remote Console application, which will be retired. So partners now have control over their partner and SAP tasks for their customers in one single place, the RSP Studio, which will ultimately promote reduced maintenance downtime. The Remote Support Platform 3.2 has synchronized its landscape with the System Landscape directory, resulting in a much simpler configuration and setup process. So any landscape changes performed in the System Landscape directory at a customer site are automatically replicated to the Remote Support Platform. Configuration and setup is now much easier, and there's no disruption of Remote Support Platform results in the event of any landscape changes, for example, if you're exchanging your database server or there's a password change. The Remote Support Platform 3.2 now supports healing tasks for SAP Hana databases and the ability to schedule and backup instances of SAP Hana databases. So SAP Hana databases can leverage the healing tasks delivered from the Remote Support Platform 3.2 to resolve any potential issues easily. And scheduling regular backups of the SAP Hana database and deleting old backups automatically saves maintenance time and ultimately provides a higher level of automation. We now have a new on-premise support user. The on-premise support user, a function already available for SAP Business One Cloud, is a predefined user in SAP Business One, which gives you the ability for partners to access the customer system without needing an additional license. The support user can only be used when the Remote Support Platform is activated and a system status report has been uploaded within the last 7 days. The support users guarantee no disruption of business for customers as no regular user is forced to log out. Finally, we are going to take a look at several platform and extensibility topics for Release 9.2. Browser access offers simple remote access for on-premise customers, ultimately lowering the overall total cost of ownership with no need for a remote desktop connection and corresponding license for most users. No client upgrades means simpler lifecycle management with minimized ecosystem effort. You can securely access SAP Business One from any location with a compatible browser. Instead of using the existing remote access via a remote desktop service or Citrix, browser access is only accessible through a web browser and leverages the Browser Access Dispatcher to start an SAP Business One client session in Web UI Server mode, using specific start parameters for the SAP Business One client. This will display the SAP Business One user interface not through the underlying operating system but through a web interface engine, which will render the user interface in HTML5 format to be consumed by supported web browsers. Updates to user-defined fields and system tables. When adding a user-defined field to an SAP Business One table, you can now link it to a system table, which allows you to create new and flexible business scenarios. So there's no additional need to fill the user-defined field manually or retrieve it from existing master data and have to keep it in sync. Now with direct access to the system object, the data is consistent and its integrity is maintained as there is only one single source of the truth for this user-defined field. Several additional enhancements to user-defined tables, objects and fields include, for example, the increase of user-defined table and user-defined field lengths. For user-defined objects, form size settings are stored, so when forms are resized and or moved, the system will remember these settings upon the next login. With user-defined tables, the user-defined tables setup window has provided a new object type. No object with auto-increment has been added in the drop-down list of the object type field. When you apply this type, the application creates a user-defined table with two fields, code and name. The code field is auto-increasing, therefore there's no need for manual input by the user. We now have the use of the modal form feature in the UI API. Also, performance has been improved for loading data in grids for data tables. In the UI API, a new optional filter type of item is added. If used, this filter will ensure that only events from the whitelisted items that also match the event types and form filters will be passed through the SDK. In addition, new DI API functions related to the resources module are now available. We've highlighted some of the key features of SAP Business One Release 9.2, giving you the power to run your business simply, anytime, anywhere. So check out SAP Business One 9.2 today.